Meetup. We are back here with Wump, who's going to be talking to us about Rerun. So, Wump, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Forrest. And yeah, again, also thanks for reaching out and having me here on the show, so to speak. Right, so let's talk about Rerun. So Rerun is a visualization tool by the company with the same name, of which I happen to be an engineer of. So this is very much in own interest, very biased talk. And yeah, I want to show what Rerun is and shine a bit of light on it, how I think it could actually be useful for game dev. So yeah, I guess that's also right where I start. Like Rerun primary focus today is to write a visualization SDK for computer vision. But the tool is fairly general, it's fairly versatile, and I think there's a lot left on the table where it's still useful. So the SDK itself, you use it today from Rust and Python. At some point, we're also going to have C, but obviously we're all just interested in Rust here. And yeah, on the right, you see a bunch of screenshots like of fairly complex use cases. Most use cases aren't that complex. So on the top, we have like a reconstruction where like a mesh reconstruction where somebody like walks with a camera through a room. And in the bottom, that's actually a visualization of the like the different steps of the stable diffusion image generator. So yeah, it's like a fairly heavy lifting going on there. But in essence, it's just visualization, right? Like think of it as like plotting on steroids. And yeah, our tech stack, like it's Rust, otherwise I wouldn't be talking here. And like all our UI is done in eGUI. So it happens that our CTO is the main author of eGUI, so that was an easy choice. WGPU is our renderer. It's a custom in-house renderer based on WGPU, and our database backend, or like sort of all the data that users log, they end up in the arrow format. And yeah, it's worth noting, like, I mean, we're just another open source library, and as one, we're also trying to be well behaved and contributing to all of these libraries as we go. So you will find us on all of these popping up quite a bit. Right, so let's dive into a bit more. Like when I say like visualization, like what do you visualize there? And yeah, we're just starting, but when I like went over the list, I was like, oh, right, we actually already have like a ton of stuff that you can log, right? So that's usually how it goes. Like in your code, in your Rust code, you would go like, hey, log these things. I want to show this. And then you would like, yeah, log points, lines, tensors, or even also meshes, right? So it's like interesting if you have like mesh reconstruction or things. And the nice thing is you log them over time. So, and you can have this on different timelines. So that's like really a thing where Rerun shines today. Like you can record arbitrary amount of data and then like go back and forth and analyze what happened. And yeah, as a lot of people in Gamedev are familiar with, the whole thing is an entity component system. So yeah, I should have added like my background is actually also in game engines. That's what I did before joining this startup. All right, and yeah, what do you use it for? I put it here on the slide. I already mentioned a few of these things. So it's really about like understanding, and we figured like especially in computer vision and robotics and that kind of like really complex scenarios, there's a lot of lacking, right? Like a lot of people just like log these things in matplotlib and then like, try to like put all these windows together and somehow, and we're like, yeah, once you have more complex stuff, like more data over time, more complex data, it's really hard to like find good tools. You're often very much busy building your own. And on top of that, it's also a pretty good debugging tool, because I said like you can go very easily go back and forth in time. And it's very nice to like zoom in on like, hey, what actually happened. And since you can save these recordings, you can also use that for like, yeah, accumulating your data over time, and then like at some point figure out like, okay, what actually happened here, or like build up a database. And of course, we're trying to like, be good looking, so it's also nice for demonstrating. Okay, so far so good, but I mean, this is the Gamedev meetup, so like, why the heck am I talking here? And I should have thought of this. The top right is a video that doesn't work in this slice here. Yeah, I can show that later when I do demo. So yeah, to our surprise at the company, like actually people are already using Rerun for quite a bit of Gamedev. Like we're only a couple months that we released our open source, and we're already seeing like a lot of cool stuff. So the thing that we can't see right here, that you would have been seeing like a a skeleton from an Oculus. It's interacting with different things, and so somebody like recorded the skeleton in there to like see like, okay, what is the camera like? What is the system actually doing there? And the small something on the left here, like somebody did surface reconstruction for their fluid sim, which like, oh right, yeah, we've seen those like a lot. And my absolute favorite, bottom right, is a play session analysis of a StarCraft 2 match, which like, yeah, sure, right? Like in a lot of games, you have like very complex things going on during a session, and there's like two aspects of it, right? Like there's the actual development aspect of like, okay, did this thing do the right thing? And the other is like, oh, okay, what did the game players actually do? Like, how did the stats evolve over time? And on this one, on the little screenshot there, you see like all the unit movements. That example is actually fairly complex. I recommend you to like check out the YouTube video later, where like the SepOps, like he graphs all the like different properties of the game over time, and they can like really dive into like, okay, what did the players actually do? And I figure that's also like super interesting, like for like analyzing like what's going on in your play session. Right, yeah, let's go into a demo. First, if you could enable my screen share. Perfect. Oh yeah, I love these screens. Never gets old. Right, yeah, let's go right into it. So I prepared a little something here. We're gonna go. I'll just start. Let's start Rerun itself. So what we're seeing now is the Rerun viewer. It's waiting for data on some local port, on a network port. So yeah, let's give it some data. And for that, I instrumented a game I did last Christmas. The game itself is done in Bevy. It's a very, very simple game. It's basically Asteroids, but since it's Christmas, you're not like a space trip. You're the Grinch, and you're not fighting against asteroids. You're fighting against presents. And oh yeah, there was Santa flying by giving more presents. Oh, and I lost a life. So yeah, you get it. It's it won't get more simple than that actually. But yeah, I did that for like an advent calendar. It was a lot of fun diving deeper into Bevy there with that. Right. So, but in the background, this game was busy logging data to Rerun. So let's pause this here. So now we're actually seeing stuff here in Rerun. Let's rearrange this a little bit. Right. So yeah, let me first give an overview of like how the software is built up. So at the bottom, we have our timeline. So I paused it, but by default, it would just catch up with whatever is latest. And I can go back in time here, right? So there's already like, as I mentioned, like one of the nice use cases here. I can just go back in time and see what was going on. On the left, I have like an overview of what I'm seeing. Right now, this is looks pretty much like a scene graph, as you can tell, right? You have like all of my different entities in here. But in the future, we're actually going to make this more of a representation of what you see. So like this blueprint is really all about like configuring what you're seeing in the visualization. Because like really, right now is a lot about logging data, but already in the second, I don't think I made it for the next release, but soon we'll also like will allow you to like edit the viewer here itself from your own code. Right, and then in the middle we have our space views. So I have 3 space views. I'll talk about that more. And on the right, you can also select things here. Right, so what did I log from my data? So first I have a plot here. That's the score over time. And we see we're not doing all that well. So the game is very simple. Like it just counts your score down, and every time you like hit something, it goes up. So a nice thing is I can now also like correlate this, right? So this is a time plot. I can go like so. Wait, that was, let's reset this. There was a shortcut to move this around. I keep forgetting. Right. Whatever. Let's do it here, right? So I can see like, okay, why did I get, here, something got hit there, right? That's why the score spiked up again. And on the left, I have log messages. Like I kept it very simple. I just like logged all the times one of my Gifteroids and one of my Asteroids broke. And the most interesting one in view here is, of course, that one here. And I logged the collision geometry, actually, right? So, I mean, for this game, this is fairly redundant, right? I mean, you can see that's pretty much the same thing again, but you could imagine, like, using this as a physics debugger. Yeah, for this game, it's not that amazing. But still, actually, when I was trying this out, I found something interesting. So let's first make the point size a little bigger. So we see all right, here's the snowballs, I call them, like our little projectiles. So we zoom in on this here. So what actually happens when I hit one? So now I can go frame by frame even and see like how my objects are moving. And let's see. Now we should get a hit. Oh, okay, we got a hit. That's interesting. It disappeared. Oh, right, that was a small one. I actually wanted to see a big one. But yeah, that was an interesting thing here. Right, so we got a hit. And so the object disappeared. Then we got a new snowball. And down here, something weird happened. That's also interesting. I haven't seen that before. So yeah, for that kind of debugging, it can be quite useful. So in this game, this didn't matter all that much, of course. But you could imagine like what I just showed, maybe that could lead to a bug where like a single projectile can destroy several objects, which I don't want. And yeah, one thing I mentioned in an earlier slide is that I can log custom components. So if we like select one of these guys, oh, I forgot to zoom in. Zoom in here a little bit, right? Right. So now we can see like all of these little presents. I logged them as line strips, but I also added like an extension component. Said like, right. So actually, this one has size 1, and if we go over here, right, that one is size 2. And that one is also size 2, and that one's size 0. Right, so we can really look at arbitrary data in here. And of course, this is a very simple toy example, but it was easy enough to put together. So yeah, let's add proof to that and show some code. So this is how my Bevy game starts essentially. I must add, our Rust API is not amazing yet. I'm using a build from our main branch because it got a little bit better there. Because since I said, like, due to our computer vision focus, a lot of stuff is happening in Python. But we're getting there. I mean, the software is in Rust itself. It would be a shame if we wouldn't have a nice Rust API. So what I'm doing here, essentially, I'm connecting to a Rerun viewer on the default port. So the port is what Rerun showed me on startup. I have it local. It could be a different machine. And I made like one addition here. I wanted to send with a higher frequency than default, so I have it nice and smooth. So it shouldn't buffer up too many messages, which it will do by default. And then I set this recording stream to the global recording stream so I can use it later. And the whole thing is feature gated, right? Because yeah, when I ship my game, I probably don't want this. And then I run my game as normal. And then later, I just add, like here, I have added a system to whenever like my gift or oh no, sorry, that's actually not a system. Let's look at this one. This one is a where did I put this? Oh yeah, here, right. So here I added a Bevy system. If you're familiar with Bevy, like I get all these queries I do over entities and over my entities and specify which components I want. And then I just go through them again and log all these lines. So yeah, here's like a sort of a few to-dos. Like Rerun right now doesn't have like rotated rectangles. It's only like axis-aligned rectangles. So I used line strips for these little rectangles, and then I send them off to Rerun. And I specify a time, and I actually also a timeline, and the components that are just defined. And I could add more components, right? So for example, for my Grinch, the little triangle, I actually also added a color, so it like sticks out better and doesn't use the default colors. Right. Yeah, I think we can go back to the slides. Thank you. Yeah, that's it already. I'll leave you here with a bunch of links. So in Rust, it's fairly straightforward. You just add Rerun and like the next version, ideally 06 next week. We're releasing about like every 2 or 3 weeks, trying to keep a high cadence right now because like we're still adding a lot of stuff. And in Python, it's even easier. You could just go pip install, and it's Rerun SDK, not Rerun. That name was sadly already taken. And yeah, you can find more about the website and our docs. There's also like a getting started example for both Python and Rust. And you find us on Discord. We're always way happy about anyone like showing off what they got, or asking questions, or complaining how shit everything is. Because I assure you, there's still a lot of rough edges, but we're getting there. And again, a link to my favorite example for like play session analysis, the swarming example, and what I just showed you, the Asteroid example. And yeah, that's it for me already. Thank you.
Awesome. So we do have a few questions here in chat. Can I bring up your editor screen just so we can take a look at the UI again?
Yo, sure. Go ahead.
Perfect. Awesome. So first of all, when I saw this, I'm like, wow, there's like a lot put together. I've been playing with eGUI a little bit for my own stuff, and definitely a nice system to interact with. So one point that was brought up that I heavily agree with. Rerun looks like it might just be the thing to diagnose by physics bugs, and I love that so much because now correct me if I'm wrong, but when we see like this sort of view in the bottom right, this is like image processing that's happening on the screen to denote where objects are. It's not the it's not like interacting to know where stuff is in memory, right?
Not sure if I got that question right. I'll try to answer anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, what you see here on the screen is data that was sent over to Rerun, right? So like this data is in a way independent of the game, right? Like the game bundled up the messages, sent it over to Rerun, and then Rerun can like look at that data, right? It's like I can even dive in here. It's like, oh, okay, so actually you sent me a bunch of positions. Was there another way to look at these even? There was a way to look. Maybe that's a new bug. Right, yeah, but I mean, you can really like just look at raw data that you sent, right? I mean, in the end, that's what it is.
Okay, super cool, super cool. And so, I mean, as just a UI to kind of see stuff moving together. So when I was doing some amount of image processing in university and kind of playing around with this, but when you can look at stuff in this form, it seems to me like you could do a lot of testing on top of this to see, does stuff happen properly? And so to Kevin's point about being able to use this for like diagnosing issues, like do you see this being part of a test framework where you can like either write some types of tests or analysis or something on top of the system?
Not yet, but I think it's definitely it's an interesting idea. I mean, the nice thing is like the database that we build up by gathering all the data, you can save that out, right? Like I could save this out now, right? The file format is not stable yet, but you could imagine that like, yeah, you put this on a server and then you process that after the fact, right? Like, so you use this as pure recordings. So I mean, also the nice thing is like the game. I probably should stop that, otherwise it keeps on spamming Rerun. Right? I mean, the game doesn't know about this application, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I compiled this without like I could build in the viewer actually into the game. I mean, it's just another Rust application. But yeah, I mean, really, just at that point, just like a communication format that the viewer then can look at. So yes, but I think the main thing we're lacking so far is UI elements inside the viewer. That's definitely a thing that will come, so that you like add your own buttons and they get the callback. And then I imagine you could also do like, okay, I looked at one thing and now I press like an analysis button directly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
And I think your point about this data being separate from the context that it's in is really cool, where like in a lot of ways when we're doing, well, from my experience when I've done stuff like flame graphs and all of this, it's all about like recording how long something is and not any of the context of what's happening in there, but just getting telemetry about it. And so this is like more of a maybe visual way of analyzing that telemetry.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And so I mean, definitely like, so this case right here is looking at a video game, but I can see like a lot of applications for like robotics and similar like real life to data pipeline kinds of things, which is super exciting.
That's good to hear, because I mean, I'm super excited about like people trying this out for all sort of things. But yeah, as you say, right, like the main focus is like these really complex ones. Is it still running? I haven't tried this in a while. I mean, I can also show this live since you. Oh yeah, right. So this is similar from the screenshot. It's a bit fake because this one already has the mesh reconstructed. Like in the original, the mesh reconstructs on the go. But yeah, right. And I mean, you have these way more complex pipelines where like, oh, this thing is looking at that, and then there's like a def image here, and yeah,
well,
you want to like figure out what's going on here.
So, like, this is the thing that I've seen with Rerun before, and there's a lot going on here. So can you walk through a little bit about what's going on with these different views?
Okay, yeah, I can. Let me try at least. Let me try.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So yeah, generally again, like we have on the left, you can see like all the things that were logged and actually also what we're looking at. Right. So and yeah, this one is a bit messy, I admit, right? Like because like we're still lacking a feature that you can like look inside this mesh. It's almost a bit embarrassing at this point. Like,
I don't know about that. I like when I saw this, I'm like, wow, this is super complete. Like sure, there's some stuff going on, but at the same time, like when I've done either visual effects or anything, and I was talking to you about this before we started today, but like when I was playing around with this, like these ideas, a lot of it was like you have your camera and then you move it around the world and then you just track it, but there was like no chance of like actually making a 3D object just from footage, and so yeah, like seeing this, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Right. I guess that's the thing I should also clarify for everyone in the audience, right? Like Rerun will not do the computation here for you, right? Like somebody developed an algorithm that reconstructed this mesh, and they were like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
That's a surprisingly hard question, right? Because you spend all your time like doing this mesh reconstruction and all these things, and now you also need to read up on rendering. It's like, well, great.
Yeah.
It's like, which that's kind of unfair, right? Like, or like, oh, I wanted to plot this. Like, oh, come on, do I need to write a plotting library now? It's like nobody would do that.
Okay, so this sits more on the side of you have the data already, and there are different ways of visualizing it within Rerun.
Precisely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean that's a common misunderstanding, right? We have all these like flashy use cases here, and like but like this is really a visualization tool, right? As I said, think of it as a plotter on steroids.
Okay, and I mean even looking at it like that, these two separate views where you can hover over one side and it like kind of raycasts into the other, and then you get a lot of data about what depth and what color and stuff like that. Like I mean that still has an insane amount of applications if you can. I suppose like build your own modules, like if you want to do stuff for like medical, if you want to do stuff for robotics, if you want to do stuff for game dev. Yeah, and actually just out of curiosity, what does it look like to add another module here that displays information differently?
Like you mean like a new view that works completely differently, essentially?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, so the UI allows you to like add, I mean, what I just like did casually here, right? Like I can just add more stuff here and then they pop up here, right? Because I mean, as I said before, this is really a representation of what you're looking at, not so much what is logged. And then you can, right, if I bring back the selection view, can like, right, so in this one, now I disabled depth, right? I can overlay this differently here. And also like remove the boxes, something like that. But right now to like have a completely different kind of visualization will require you to change the application a little bit. But I mean, we're already like offering a lot of like different kinds. It becomes very much down to like, depending on what data you added. But you can like add, like compose arbitrary views here together, like decide what objects they're in. And like a few things have more complex options, like this one can have a different color map. And that sort of thing will soon be also available from code. Right now, these are all like UI interactions. But a lot of people ask us like, hey, I like open your application every single time I change the color map, or every single time I put these objects together. Like, what the heck? So, and yeah, like, I mean, actually it does save the state, but it's like the idea of like you run it new or you have like a different thing, and you know in the code what you're doing, right? Like normal plotting libraries work like that. You tell them what you want to see. And yeah, sure, it's nice to like do that from the UI, but you want to do that from code. So yeah, we're going to add more and more of that, right? Does it answer the question? I wasn't entirely sure.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, even adding a little bit more just from a question in chat now, is there documentation and examples for all of these different types of views that are currently within Rerun?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I can bring that briefly on screen. So if we go to Rerun IO docs, we do have examples here, which goes pretty much through all the examples that we have on our repository. Most of them are Python, sadly, but I think we have 4 or 5 Rust examples by now. So yeah, here like we have like these depth clouds. Oh, they actually look nice.
Oh, okay. So it's like you have some Python way of it has its data and it wants to transfer it over to Rerun. And so what you're saying is like there's not as many Rust implementations that would be able to send a certain type of data to Rerun just yet.
Frankly, it's mostly just us not adding enough samples yet, right? Like the Rust, arguably the Rust API is more powerful because it's more low level. I mean, the Rust API really comes like down to what I showed here for my little game, right? Like you send these messages, and then they become part of the database. The main thing is, of course, that like if you want to do like a lot of like computer vision in these things, like a lot of these libraries are sort of Python first, right? And yeah, a lot of these samples, what they do is like they grab some Python library, and then run algorithms with it, and the output of the algorithm they log with Rerun to show them.
Okay.
So, this one, for example, here, if we go there, I haven't looked at that in a while. Right, so this runs this algorithm by Meta, apparently. Oh, all right. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, this is super new, actually. This is a really cool one. So right, they rolled out this new model. You can download it in Python. And that was not a new tab. And right, and then you can see, okay, how well did it actually perform, right? And like try this out on your own pictures, and then look at the results in Rerun. And our hope is, of course, that also like people developing new algorithms will pick up on Rerun and use it for developing. But another thing we found, and that's sort of also the backstory of our founders, is when you want to use these algorithms in real life, you will hit issues, tons of them, right? Like you use an off-the-shelf algorithm for segmenting something, or I don't know, and they have a gazillion of parameters, and you're trying to build a product, or I don't know, even a toy or anything, and nothing works, right? And you're like, why did it not work? And that's also, again, where Rerun comes in, right? You log your data with Rerun, you have a close look, you tweak your parameters, rinse and repeat, and at someday you're probably going to be successful. With the added benefit, you don't need to write your own visualization tool.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And so for tools that want to have an easy way to say, here's our library, and we don't want to write our own visualizer, so we're just going to write our own bindings to plug into Rerun, they can easily have their own visualization like this.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Nice, okay.
Since I just scroll over it, I think that's actually another cool example for Gamedev. Right, so we have an example that runs a Python library that does assigned distance fields, right? And yeah, I've been back when I did game engine developments, I love those. And this is this is a little example where we actually show the algorithm, the output, and you can also slice through the actual 3D volume then. Wow. So that's kind of nice, right? You definitely want to use that SDF then as is in your game for all your lighting. But do you really want to write slicing through the data and all the UI interactions? I don't know. I mean, that's also fun.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously not for everyone, right? But I mean, it's nice to have a quick way to get started and just try this out, I think.
And I mean, just kind of one extended question here, and then I have a few more in chat. So I know one of eGUI's very big selling features is that it can be added on top of the UI of a game to make it super awesome for debugging. Do you see Rerun as something that it could be I'm using Bevy and I want an easy way to visualize stuff that is just data to me right now, and I don't want to run a separate Rerun application, and so I'm gonna hit my hotkey so that I bring up Rerun and I can start seeing stuff in a different debugging way than eGUI?
Oh my god, that's a great idea. I honestly never thought of it that way, but yeah, sure, why not? I mean, yeah, that could totally work, right? I mean, we would need to. No. This actually plays into a current story we have internally, where the view application, we're refactoring a few things and making it more composable, right? Like these timeline views that we saw there. Where did it go? Right, so timeline we moved here, right? That should really be a separate crate, right?
Okay.
I mean, sure, it can still have dependency to other Rerun crates, but it should be easy to fork the viewer and build your own version where you go oh, I don't want this thing here at all, or I want no selection, or I want two selections, right? I mean, at least for a power user who's ready to fork the Rust code, this shouldn't be horribly hard. And yeah, I guess also in the same way, right? I think you should be able to just tell it hey, render this eGUI UI over there. So yeah, it's an interesting idea. It seems a bit unconventional at first, but yeah, why not?
Just a few questions here in chat. So one of them, is the logging added on the fly to the interface, or can I only visualize when the full snapshot is saved on disk?
You can on the fly, right? So maybe I can just bring this up again, right? So if we start this. Right, so this one is now just listening to what's coming in, and if I start my game here, right, so the game is happening live, right? So right now I'm looking at the news data that just came in.
Yeah.
And if I have this side by side, we see this is a direct representation. And if I kill the game, I was oh yeah, okay, let's go back.
Okay.
And then I can go hey, save this recording, load the recording. Where was it here? Right, so I can save the recording. Data's a bad name. Gamedev. All right, close my viewer. No, I forgot where I put it. Let's see. Where did I put it? Come, just bring it up. Oh, there. And there it is again, right? So this is kind of nice also to you can also do that from code, by the way, right? You can also go in the code and it's like, I actually don't want to like do all this live recording. I just like put the stream to a file, right? Like right now we're streaming to the viewer. We could also stream to a viewer that runs in the browser, thanks to WebGPU. You could also stream to a different computer, or you could stream to a file. So it's fairly flexible in that way. That's also why this like question of like having it on screen like made me stumble at first. But I guess you could also have stream it there, right? You can have your viewer in. I mean, you can already have the viewer in process. So like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I was kind of just thinking. Well, what had got me thinking about that is I'm like, okay, if I want to use this for tooling and I want to use like some game engine with an editor, then maybe it would be within the editor that I'd have a window that is the rerun window. Or then I'm thinking, okay, well, what if you're just bootstrapping your own game? You don't have an engine. So for example, like with Valorant, whenever we do flame graphs or anything, this is all recorded data that will then go through afterwards. But what would tooling look like in that case? I'm like, okay, well, yeah, if there's just extra tabs you could bring up, like could be pretty interesting for debugging. But I mean, if it's something that makes sense, then it could be really cool to see. But I like Rerun's open source, so someone could just go and try that themselves, right?
Absolutely, right? Yeah, maybe. I mean, since that question also comes up a lot, and I'll just preempt that. Right? So, I mean, we are a little company. We're like 7 people right now, and I mean, we're trying to drive an open core model where like this software and all of this is open source and will stay indefinitely. And the goal really is like the open source project should cover everything that a single person needs for like prototyping. And where we're gonna have later, like we don't have yet, but where we're gonna have later a commercial offering is like everything around sharing on the server, having like cloud services and that sort of thing. But like, yeah, you can just like grab the code and do whatever. Please do. It's like as per usual, it's MIT and Apache. Yeah, MIT and Apache licensed, dual licensed.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that is super cool to see. I definitely hope to see some updates in future months as more versions get released. And so hopefully we can have you back sometime. But Andreas, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks also for all the super interesting questions.
Absolutely. Yes. I love going through this kind of stuff. So it's all good. All right. We'll be back in just a minute with Graphite.